Chris Todd, welcome to the Optimal Performance Podcast.
How's it going, Sean?
It's great. I can't wait to talk to you. This is something I've never done before, which is to have either, a coaching client or, like yourself, an attendee, one of the friends from Dry Fasting with Friends. So I'm excited because this is just going to be a nice, easy conversation.
Sweet. Looking forward to it.
So how long has it been since you completed your 5-day dry fast?
We're coming up on just about 2 weeks shy of a year. So it's been
Wow.
been about 12 months. It's time.
Wow. What drew you to dry fasting from the jump? Like, what was your main motivator?
I'm not by any means any kind of biohacker or anything like that. I'm a pretty normal guy when it comes to just traditional, diet habits, all that good stuff. But I think especially, and this is probably true for a lot of people, as you start getting into your 40s and you start kind of listening to your body a little bit and you start thinking about, okay, I'm into the second half of life, somewhere around that time. I think you start thinking about listening to your body, listening to Father Time a little bit and thinking like, how can I do this a little bit better? The daunting part of it is that you've been doing things for so long, for a majority of your life, if not all of it, that it feels like you're just chiseling off little pieces if you just make little small adjustments. While those are great, it's hard to really feel like you've done a reset. So I was kind of looking for things in terms of like, how do I make a dramatic change and something that puts me in a place that I wouldn't be able to get to for at least a couple of years doing other more traditional changes.
I like the way that you're describing that because I think you're right. Starting to go to the gym and lift, you might not notice anything for a month and a half. Like, oh, my shoulders are a little bit more muscular, etc. You could change your diet. Maybe you notice quickly that your digestion is better and that you are a little less inflamed. But it's a long process for these sort of incremental changes the way that you're describing them. And I think it's totally true. What I'm curious about is if you're not a biohacker guy, you're not an extreme eater or cold plunger or whatever. What about if that's not your sort of archetype to do the extreme stuff, then why roll the dice on starving yourself of food and water for 5 days? Like, what made you go from that looks crazy to, you know what, I'm in?
I think I'm a competitive person. So that was it, it's part of it was like, can I do this? It's almost like when someone says like, you see friends or people running marathons, you're like, I don't run marathons, but could I do it if I just threw my hat in the ring? So there's a little bit of that too, is like kind of, overconfidence, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I do think it's also like seeing, I'd seen you do it and come out on the other side. I'd seen a number of other people I know just from, whether it be growing up or through acquaintances, do the same thing. So I was, for better or worse, the algorithms were speaking to me in terms of engaging and showcasing to me these things that were going on that were less talked about. And so it was kind of almost one of those like, why am I seeing this? Now, of course, yeah, digital algorithms and everything considered, but it was almost kind of like a appropriate timing for me. It's like you're coming up on the beginning of a year. There's always some element of a New Year's resolution that people go through. Like, how do I turn over a new leaf? And so for me, it was kind of like I saw yourself and other individuals do it, have dramatic awesome results and come out fine and unscathed and in a better place. So I think it was that comfort of knowing that people aren't dropping like flies and dying doing this thing was a little bit warming. And then secondly, it was like, how far off am I? It was kind of like that litmus test of like, okay, am I so unhealthy that I can't do something like this? I think the cool thing, and not to skip ahead too much, but I think it's, the fun part for me now is that like there's no sense of dread or fear now in this process. It's like all excitement. It's like, cool, I get to do that again, as opposed to it being like, I hope I survive, because that's everybody has that when you consider something like this, especially if it's not in your DNA to be that way.
Right. Totally right. Yeah. Can I really survive on ribeyes only? Will I make it is kind of a question. Will I have a panic attack and a cold plunge? And what's interesting to me is that everybody's got their own motivation for the thing that like put them over the edge to do this. For me, it was the stem cells. I wanted the stem cells. I'm 42 and I still train jujitsu and I'm not getting younger and I'm trying to delay TRT as long as possible. I still want to be fit and strong into my 50s before I go down that rabbit hole of medications and hormones and stuff like that. So for me, it was like, I want the stem cells. And if that means, it helps repair a soccer injury, cool. If it makes me look younger, cool. If it helps my gut, whatever. But I wanted I wanted the free stem cells. And so it doesn't sound like it was that specific for you. You just wanted to do something extremely challenging to see what would happen.
Yeah. I think if I had to, if you're talking about the line items of things that are benefits that come out of this process, if I had to point at one, I think it was twofold. One is call it emotional, spiritual reset component. That was one that I think was incredible going through the process, is just understand. Well, I'll explain it a little bit on that side. The other one was like the dramatic weight loss. And not that I'm extremely obese individual or anything along those lines, but it was the whole concept, like, you're telling me that if I dedicate 5 days of my life, I can drop 21 pounds. Like, that's what happened. And it was like that without really all that much discomfort or agony. On the spiritual side of things, it was simplifying your needs and necessities. It was changing the idea of like what makes you happy, like on a regular basis. I think we take for granted just, how thankful we should be for the little things that we do get on a regular basis. And I talk about this with my wife all the time. It's like, even little things like hearing water run, your sensitivities to necessity become so heightened and everything else becomes very secondary. Not unlike the experience of if and when you have kids. And I know you do, Sean, and I've got kids. And then all of a sudden your worldview changes a little bit when you're like, oh wow, okay, I don't need all those other things. It's a lot like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Major perspective shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are two great reasons in my book, like losing a bunch of weight quickly, losing a bunch of fat specifically.
That's right. Yeah.
Quickly. A super intense gratitude practice that recalibrates your life. Those are two excellent reasons. And the way that Theo and I kind of think about it is that we are kind of speaking to kind of two different types of people who are edge seekers, who are seeking an edge. They want the fat loss, they want the stem cells, they want the gut reset, and they're willing to do something very extreme to get it. And then there's the people who are kind of ill, who are in dis-ease, who have issues. From our group, we had a number of people who were dealing with cancer, who were dealing with bone and structural issues, some autoimmune issues. And so we kind of think about it of those two archetypes. And the way that you're talking about it, you're kind of in the middle. You're not really the edge seeker, but you're not sick either. And I like it because the experiences that you shared with us around what it did for your sleep were kind of the most staggering comments that you made. Man, we could go so many different directions with this. I want to keep it real specific. Let's focus on sleep too, because I know that was a big deal for you. What was your sleep like before the 5-day dry fast? And what was it like after? And a year later, has it continued?
Yeah. So I think a couple things. Sleep before was like highly dependent on like melatonin, and then there was like mid sleep waking, middle of the night, call it like 1 to 3 a.m. type of stuff, where you get up, either go urinate, or you just get a buzz of weird, energy, which, you kind of learn if you look into it, it's like more like adrenaline being shot in your body because of various things going on. And also just messes with different levels of things that you got going on as you prepare for sleep, and your natural rhythms should be doing aren't kicking in or overdrive. So it was a lot of I'd call broken sleep. It wasn't real deep sleep. I'd say by day 3 of the 5-day, it was like dramatically deeper, the sleep. And it was not what I'll call like almost like instigated sleep. It was like my body was like, no, it's time to go to sleep. Like your body was speaking to me about once 7-8 p.m. started hitting, it was very much saying like, okay, like this is just the natural progression of sleep. So that was really cool. It's just because it's been since I was a kid. That was, my reality was like my body just being like, okay, time to shut down. Since going through it, I've gone back to, mild caffeine consumption, some of the things I wasn't doing during it and that I didn't do for about 2 months after that. Not out of necessity, just more out of boredom than anything, probably. That said, where sleep is at now, due to caffeinating myself and things like that, some of the sleep does get disrupted, but I can get back into that cycle a lot faster. That if I do deprive myself of caffeine for a couple days, I start getting tired at the normal times. So I do feel like my body rebounded to a place and that I haven't lost what I gained by going through the process. So that's another piece of why I'm also looking forward to this is I do want to get my sleep back on track. And I don't think I'll have a problem doing that. And once again, I'll take 2 steps forward as opposed to taking a couple back.
Have you had discussions with your wife and your family and that fact that you're going to do another dry fast coming up in a couple
Yeah.
weeks?
Yeah. No, and that's a part of the process, especially for if this isn't, part of your MO is like you do have to schedule and you almost kind of have to call in for favors if you've got a family or you're doing something with work and you're like, hey guys, I'm not going to be available during this time or things like that. So, yeah, it's I don't have there's not so much of the naysaying though now or this time around, which is great because they saw you go through it. They saw that you turned out fine, that you're better than you've been. And they're kind of just like, okay, you've got a seminar you're going to almost kind of like that there's no downside to what you're making sure they carve out time for.
And are you planning on doing 5 or 3?
I'm still deciding. The hard part is that I've got work travel butting right up against the start date. And then I've also got like coaching duties and things like that. 3 for sure, obviously. But if it looks like I have the window to kick it into the additional 2 days, I will absolutely take that opportunity. The hardest part, and I think you guys probably talk about this a decent amount, is honestly the aftermath. And it's not that it's difficult, it's that there is a way to come out of a 5 day that you don't have to be as stringent with in a 3 day. And so that's the part of it is I think that when people prep for this, if there's anything I can point out, it's that like while it may be a 5 day deal, you do also have to kind of think about the 2 to 5 days afterwards too, because that's just part of it. So it's, you don't go right back in and gorge yourself on food. And even with a 3 day, I don't think I would do that either. I would still slow play it.
Yeah, cool. Well, one thing that a couple of insights that can help if you're traveling right up to the time of the start of the dry fast, what you could probably do is you could either water fast for the day or two ahead of time to kind of kickstart it so that you're not going from oxidative stress and travel and fatigue into the 5 day. Obviously, we provide the detoxes and stuff, the pre-toxes we talk about to kind of activate the detox pathways before the 5 day. But the other thing that you could do is you could also dry fast. Like Theo is traveling back home today and he's going to do a 2 day dry fast. And I do the same thing every time I travel. I dry fast for at least 24 hours. So you could actually kickstart it if you felt like it.
That was my plan because I get done with my trip. I leave the morning of the Friday, which is like the 9th or something like that. So I was thinking about just basically, starting my fast the night before, like at like 6 p.m. And then just from that point, it's 6 p.m. onward. So really not, I don't remember the official time that you guys are starting, but I think I would be actually pretty spot on with it if I did that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. What of either your personal experience or an experience that you heard secondhand from, one of the other friends from the group, what one thing blew your mind?
There's quite a few. I won't name names or anything like that, but there were some individuals that participated in the program that were in I guess you'd call it the higher half of age bracket that was participating, and how easily they handled the 5 day was really impressive, especially considering that some of them had some other things going on too, health wise. So that was super cool. And not to say like, looking at, all the different things that people have going on with their body is like like a kick out of it, but it's just like, it's cool seeing some not only dramatic changes to sleep patterns, to emotions, to the way that they're feeling in terms of energy. But how eager they were coming out of it to do it again. I think it was super cool. And I think that's the fun thing is it's almost like when you think about getting older and longevity, that you can still do something like this and do it not only just as well as you did at an earlier age, but you can actually probably do it better. It's almost like golf or something like that, where it's like, it's something you can take with you and keep doing. If you look at, like the author of the Phoenix Protocol, it says August, is that his name?
August
Yeah,
Dunning,
yeah,
yeah.
August Dunning. I mean, like even just looking at that guy, I consume his content regularly as it hits YouTube, and just seeing from where they started several years ago to where they are now. And that once again, it's not something where you do it and then you lose it and you start from scratch again. It's continually building and building.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that was one thing that definitely stood out to me too. Some of these folks in their 70s or even 80s who were like working out every day of the 5-day dry fast and like really tolerating it really well, losing a bunch of fat, gaining a bunch of clarity, watching their body change, their mood change, and just sort of la-di-da all the way through the 5 days, and then being like, cool, can't wait to do it again. That stood out to me as well. What else has lasted besides the sleep that it sounds like you can kind of decide to tap back into better sleep with caffeine regulation? What about either from a mental health perspective or a discipline or palate appetite perspective or from a physicality? Like what also has lasted that surprised you?
Yeah. Two things. I think one, from a mental capacity, understanding what your body's doing when you're feeling a certain way, I think it is a big part of it because you go from being, what I would call, traditionally full or traditionally not nutritioned in a place when you start.
Nourished.
Yeah, yeah. You go from a place of like, okay, I have what I need. I ate my last meal. I drank my last drink to a place of like, let's call it starvation. Where you're like, wow, I've got nothing left and I'm relying on my own body to do these things. And so you see the whole gamut of what your body goes through as you go from digestion to non-digestion to survival. And so I think even in a day where you go on like a 24-hour fast or even just lightly eating or call it an 8 to 12, window of not eating or something like that. Like that type of thing, you start feeling and realizing what your body's doing and you pay a little bit more attention to it. So I think that's a big piece. The other piece too is the sensitivity of your body gets heightened. And I don't mean it as a thing like, oh, I can't have a drink anymore, or I can't eat this anymore. But like you're just more in tune with the way your body's reacting to something. And you also it helps you understand how to come out of it too, where you're like, okay, I need to do less of this because I know that's why this is going on or why I'm feeling this way. So I think that's a big piece of it is like in the past, I'd always looked at like sensitivity to this stuff as like not like a weakness, but like they can't handle it, type of thing. Whereas now I'm more like, no, 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 it's because their body's cleaner and they're healthier than I am. So they're able to feel these things.
Right, totally right. Like it's impressive when you can see a dude chug 10 beers and operate the next day or see somebody, eat an entire pizza and be like, "Dude, how do you do that?" Well, when you're conditioning yourself for 10 beers, when you're conditioning yourself for, a whole plate of french fries that would then you get desensitized to the downside of it. And I think you're totally right. What we call that in the sort of biohacking sphere is interoception. So, like, you can tell what's going on in your body intuitively. And this is not woo woo. This is like, shit, I feel inflamed. I've got puffy eyes. My skin is red. I'm walking downstairs and my chest muscles are jiggling as I'm walking down the stairs. My joints are achy or my stomach is
That's been a
disrupted.
big one for me is like joints like lower back, ankles, wrists, elbows, things like that. I can tell now, like when I've eaten something or I've acted a way that disagrees with me. There's that. And even when just from the point of consumption of something, I can feel how my body's reacting to it within about 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah.
Really?
Where it's just like as soon as it hits like down in your upper digestion and right around like the rib line and as it starts to make its way, into like as it's going and grabbing, and corresponding with like your gallbladder and things like that, I can tell very much what's going on where I'm like, oh shoot, it's overworking or it's not. Like that early digestion for me is something that before never had any type of visibility to in terms of just like my mental, but now I can feel it right away.
Wow. That's such a gift to be able to, again, the person that eats terribly all the time, he doesn't get phased by a whole pizza, but someone who knows what it feels like to be less inflamed and understands the food that they put in their body. And then you're like, okay, I had 2 hot dogs and I had some Doritos and I had a Coke. And yeah, 10 minutes later, I feel regret. I
Yeah.
feel regret. I feel it right here. And I feel like I want to freaking run through a wall because my body doesn't want this. didn't appreciate that. You're right. There's a line there, I think, for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people like this who've kind of become, there's an extreme level to this. People who they eat so simply, they don't expose themselves to canola oil, fried foods, alcohol ever. And when they do, it wrecks them. Or similarly, someone who is so overly attuned to their body, almost orthorexic to the fact that's like, oh, I can't even be in the same room as gluten or else I'm going to like break out in hives. Like, I think that that's not a good thing either, because you have to operate in the real world, unless you live on a dairy farm and you're just, outside all the time and eating super clean and grounding and all this stuff. But I think that there is a line where I think especially biohackers and extreme diet people kind of check out from the real world a little bit and become obsessive about their food, their water, their exercise, and they don't have those sorts of like little mini doses of exposures to shitty
Yeah.
stuff that sends them sideways. But the reason why I'm excited to talk to you, Chris, is because I think, like you said in the beginning, like, you're a family man, you're a businessman, you work hard, you coach your kids, you're sort of you're an everyman. Teasing out some of the lessons and some of the experiences that you've had as an everyman and saying, these are my experiences. This might be similar for you, is why we're having this conversation. What was the hardest part of your last dry fast?
Yeah. The unknown, honestly, is the hardest part. For first timers, I won't have the same. You asked this to me a month from now, I'm going to have a different answer, because the first part is like, okay, should I be seeing this in my stool? Should I not be seeing this in my stool? Should I be urinating? Should I not be? Should I, be doing enemas? Should I not be? Like things like that, you're so unsure. And it's almost like you're wanting something big to happen, like while you're going through the process. And there's also there's the fear component of like, okay, am I going to die tomorrow? Am I going to, is the fourth day going to get me? Am I going to, not that it was really a possibility, but am I going to cave at some point? Like, you have that little bit of, fear of failure. Those are the things going through it, but I won't have that this time. So I think that was it the first time. I'm not going to have the same story this next time. If I had to take that out and remove it, the hardest things I think would be boredom, and figuring out what to do with your time, because you quickly realize how much of your day is dealing with the precursor, the act of eating, and then the aftermath of eating. It's kind of cool. I mean, it further emphasizes and prioritizes how cool of a ritual eating is to me, because like we do it for fun a lot, but then you also realize the necessity part of it too. So like, I think that'll be the thing for me, is like, how do I stay busy without overexerting myself? Because I do also think I'm going to be more prone next time around to being more active on the front end, and to like kind of thinking like, oh, I did this last time, or I think I could have done it last time. I'll do it now. So there's part of me that's just, I need to curb my expectation of how much I'm going to accomplish on the third through potentially the fifth day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I like the way you're thinking about
And
that.
third day was the hardest for me in the 5 day.
Me too.
Third day was definitely the hardest. Right as you're switching, I'd done keto in the past a couple times, but it had been a while since I had gone into keto. So like, it took a while to get there. And then once I got there, it's smooth sailing once you get there. But like that, like end of day 2 all the way through end of day 3 is really tough.
Yeah.
It's where your body really starts speaking to you. And that's another piece too, is like, you learn how, even though you hear it from people that tell you this is what's going on, it's like you hear a lot of that connection between your gut and your mind, and like what your body's telling you need to have right now. And you start getting kind of angry. Like it starts becoming like a pretty aggravated discussion with yourself on that third day, because your body's just like, you can just go do it. Like, what the hell are you doing? Give me some sugar. So that's a big piece.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, to speak to your hardest part being unknown. That's why Theo and I created this program, because we had the same thing when we were doing it on our own, or just, I did it with obviously a buddy, and I didn't even know his wife was doing it until day 4. To have people who are experienced with sort of health coaching and healing and understand the literature really well. Again, Theo and I kind of running the show and providing insights and walking you through, okay, today is like this, today is like that. To have concerns like, well, I feel pretty feverish today. Like, I might have, I might have a 100-degree fever, and having the support from Theo and I and the other members of the group to say, "Oh yeah, I'm feeling that too," I think is really everything. It's everything, because we're not together at a resort in Cabo doing this. Um, we're doing this with daily group calls and 24/7 Telegram support, so that it's like, "Oh, I felt like this today, and maybe we can support you and say, here's why." But just the commiseration of having someone also going through the exact same thing that you are is the greatest benefit that Theo and I have meant to provide to people. And so I'm excited. I'm excited for a couple of weeks from now when we dive into the next
Well,
one.
I think to speak to that part, I mean, even in doing it this second go around, like signed up to do it because of that. I can do it on my own. I don't, at this point, I don't have to have anybody tell me what to do. I mean, there are tricks involved, and there are supplies you need to have that you wouldn't know to have unless you'd gone through the process. But hypothetically, I have what I need moving forward to do it on my own. And so when I was telling my wife, like, "Hey, I'm doing this and I'm going to do the same with the same group I did last time," she's like, why are you doing, like, why are you paying a lot of money to do this, and I'm like, because that's the whole value of it. Is it's not just the, like, I need to know how to do it. It's the fact that you're with a group. I mean, it's like any group activity, whether it's sports or whether it's leisure related or anything. It's like you're doing it because the movement of the group up the mountain is what's inspiring and keeps you going. Like, I could do it hands down on my own, no problem. But being part of the group is really, really valuable as part of this.
Awesome. Well said. You have no idea how that touches my heart, Chris, like really deeply. I hope you know how big a weirdo you are having done this and coming back for more. I mean, of the global population of people on planet Earth alive today, there is a very, very, like a decimal point of a percentile of people who have done this, who have ever done this in their life. And what I'm encouraged by is the growth of this movement. And mark my words, in a couple of years, more likely 5 plus, but maybe 2 or 3, this is going to be talked about. You're
It's
going to
just, this
see
is
headlines.
maintenance. It's just that's the way I look at it, is general maintenance. And for anybody who's falls in the middle like myself, where you're not one way or the other, you're trying to make good decisions, but you're also not dedicating your life to it. I think from me, and even when you hear August Dunning talk about it, he's like, "Hey, go have a beer, go have a piece of pizza." Like, you're setting yourself up in a way that, as long as you do this, you're erasing so many of the precursors to serious disease and cancer and things along those lines. And that's reassuring,
100%.
where it's like, somebody's like, for a person that likes the middle and likes the good things and all the other stuff in life, like, it's like somebody's like, you know what, like, the peace of mind of that, whether or not it's true or not, it's nice, because you're like, you know what, I'm doing the work, and I'm doing the work in a very consolidated amount of time, and it's not that difficult.
Yeah, there's a pragmatism to it. Totally, 100%. Well, and even if you eat, yes, beer and pizza and French fries, but also just the rigors of daily stress that tax our systems, that tax our brain and our body, the cortisol, the chemtrails, just exposure to Wi-Fi routers all day long. The fact that we sit, all of these things are kind of unavoidable to a certain extent. And we have to have some way. You could sauna every day. That would be tremendously helpful. You would live a much longer time. Not everybody's going to do that. And so if I can consolidate and be pragmatic about once a year, twice a year, I'm going to do this to take care of not only the beer and pizza that I had 10 months ago, but also to supercharge my cells, to reset my gut, to clean out the insides of my cells, to clean up the DNA and to get the stem cells. It's a very practical, and you and I both know that it's an ancient and an intuitive process. It wasn't voluntary for your ancestors or my ancestors to go without food or water for a couple of days, but they did it all the time. Their ancestors all the way back did it involuntarily. They're just, some couldn't drink, couldn't eat, food wasn't around, and it is a memory in our DNA that we are now trying, honestly, to kind of I've seen it be the sort of medicalized. There was somebody I've seen these. If you're in the same, which you are, same algos as me, there's like autophagy is coming up a lot, like a Nobel Peace Japanese
Yeah.
researcher Nobel Peace Prize. Well, that was in
I was gonna
2016
say
that
that
he
was
did
like
that.
I was gonna say 7 or 8 years ago. That's like 10 years ago now.
Right. And it's like I'm getting stuff in my feed now about autophagy and Nobel Peace Prize winning like fasting protocols from this Japanese scientist. Well, that was a water fast, number one, which is pretty different. And number two, that I think people are waking up to it and understanding that our bodies are intelligent and our bodies know what to do and they can heal themselves the same way that my dog or my son who's got a head cold today, like he didn't eat breakfast. And I was like, are you sure? Like you're going to get to lunch and be hungry and you're going to probably eat school lunch and it's, you're going to have a cheeseburger or something and you're going to regret it. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to skip breakfast. Just pack me some fruit and if I'm hungry, I'll eat it at lunch. He just knew his body doesn't want it.
Right.
Body's not hungry. It wants to sleep and it doesn't want to eat or really drink water. And that intuitive sense that our bodies know what to do should be popularized, should be promoted. Like there is a film being shot right now in Italy, and I just learned this a couple of days ago. Sarah, who is going to join us for dry fasting with friends on January 8th, she's doing a bunch of research and she lives in Spain. There's a documentary film being made right now as we speak about this retreat center in Italy where they dry fast. And it's really not even about health. It's more for spiritual development. But these people are getting together and dry fasting and having these incredible experiences and doing movement and lymphatic, massage and all this stuff to just like transform, just rise from the ashes like a phoenix, like this metaphor that we keep talking about. So my point is that we're still at the beginning. We're still at the very, 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 very tip of the spear of a movement toward decentralized health. Decentralized has nothing to do with your doctor, has nothing to do with petroleum based pharmaceuticals, has nothing to do with, big ag or grass fed beef. This is
Or
decentralized.
you deinstitutionalized.
Institutionalized is even better. This is you healing yourself because your body knows what to do. And you're in a very small group of people on the planet that is voluntarily doing this. 20 pounds? You lost 20
Yeah, I went
pounds?
from, let's see, 82, oh, let's see, 181 to 1, no, let's see, 181 to 159. So I guess 22 pounds. That's, if I'm doing my math right, I guess. Something like that. Yeah.
And then you put on probably 10 or 15, maybe 10 over the course of the next couple of days back with hydration.
Yep. Yeah, I think I got 7 back, 7 or 8 back pretty quickly with hydration. And that, I think I've crept up to about 174 now, back in that area. So still maintain about 7 or 8 off, but I want to get back down to at at least 165, 160, somewhere around there after this go around, just to see if I can, maintain a little bit more. But I think we all have like weights we're comfortable operating at, and in different times of your life require different, stabilized weights. But I'd say for the last 20 years or so, like 165 is probably my ideal. I just feel good on all fronts. So I'd like to get back down there a little bit. But yeah, I think just the other things too is just like I think the cleansing of your digestive tract in general was a major thing,
Yeah.
like what you see come out of you, what you rid yourself of. I think it's just it's amazing all the things your body does to counteract and deal with what you're putting into it that's poisoning it, and then all that stuff kind of comes out as part of it, and it's just like, man, like what was I doing to myself slash what was I not getting absorbed because of all this stuff that was just in my GI. It's crazy.
What was I going to ask you? Did you capture, freeze, and then thaw your urine?
I was one of the ones that didn't freeze it. So I captured my urine, didn't freeze it because I think I just mistook that I was supposed to do that. I let it settle. It wasn't, the coloration was very dark and that was astonishing, but I didn't get the sedimentary stuff because I didn't freeze it. And so I didn't separate like a lot of the other group did. I think what was the most nuts thing for me was, and I'd been told this before because I'd had a colonoscopy in the past, and it had like MRIs and things done for just various injuries or whatever. And I remember hearing from whatever the tech was that was doing it was they're like, yeah, you're kind of like, so you didn't eat at all, as during, during the prep time. I was like, no, 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 did everything I'm supposed to. And they're like, cause like, it looks like you're like, I think I remember the lady's like, you're full of shit. She's like, you got a lot of stuff in your intestines. And I was like, how could that be? Big. I hadn't ate for, 24 hours leading up to that procedure. And going through this process, what I realized is that it was all the caked on shit that, like, think of like a sewer drain, old school sewer tunnel. It's like while the stuff goes through, it builds up and builds up on the edges so that you have this lining of old stuff in your tract. And like on the day 3, like all that came out. And it was, and going through the process, you hear like, oh, you're gonna
Really? Wait, let me stop you. Let me stop you. So you had a BM on day 3 that like cleared
It
you
was
out?
either day 2 or day 3, I'm trying to remember, but it wasn't right away. It was well into it, and then it was simultaneous with, I did an enema on day 3, the end of day 3, and all the stuff came out. And it was at first because we're all, sharing notes as we're going through this. We're like, some people are starting to pass like, gallstones or things like that. And so initially I was like, is this gallstones, like with all this stuff that came out. And I remember like, cause, kind of back channel little pictures and things that we don't share with the entire group, but it's like, hey, Theo, or hey, Sean, take a look at this. And I sent it to Theo and he's looking at it and he's like, man, he's like, I'm pretty sure that's shit. He's like, I don't think that's gallstones, dude. And I'm colorblind, so I can't tell some of that stuff. And I was like, he's like, I think that's just really old crap. And that's exactly what it
Yeah.
was. 100% that's what it was. And so it
Whoa.
was like your entire lining, in my case, my lining of everything that's been in there forever came out. And so like, I have to imagine some of that's come back, since the last time I did it. And I'm really looking forward to getting that out again. Because it's like a really satisfying feeling when you're like, oh my God, like just knowing that's not in you anymore.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a great point, which is, I like things that I can tell is makes a difference, right? Like when I get out of a cold plunge, my skin is tight, my muscles are lean, I feel kind of tucked in. When I want to see the evidence, I want to feel it and I want to see the evidence of the thing that I'm doing, which is why I did blood work for my 5-day before and after so that I could see like, well, what happens to my cholesterol? What happens to my testosterone? And obviously, like I shared and you already know, is, everything improved, including a 200-point bump. Oh, it's like a 5-point bump in my testosterone, which I was totally not expecting. But the key of like these enemas and capturing the urine is like, okay, this, I can actually see what's leaving my body. This stuff that's been in there for maybe a decade, and that's not good. But the fact that you can actually see it is so satisfying. In addition to the feeling of like, oh, like my stomach is less puffy. I'm not I look like a toad with like a round belly anymore. Everything gets sucked in. So to be able to, and I know you took before and after pictures, and especially your midsection shrunk
Yeah.
tremendously, which must be a good feeling.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, it was, and people got concerned also, like when you pass them around to friends and stuff, you're like, hey, I'm on day 4. You show them a picture and they're like, dude, stop. Like, what are you doing? Like, you look like a freak. And it's really satisfying. Super, super satisfying. Just to know that your body is eating all the bad stuff, it's getting rid of it because you're not water fasting, you're not losing a lot as much of the good stuff either, which is great because your body's not capable of doing that when you rid it of water too. So yeah, it's really cool. I mean, you're talking earlier about just like our bodies know how to do this, and you just think about natural weight gain cycles and things that your body does throughout the course of a year, like as you go into winter months. And there's no better time to do it than right now because I just feel like it's very in line and in tune with the way that our bodies have operated for many, many, many years. But yeah, I mean, we're most of us. I mean, we had some folks from like Australia, so you're different on different parts of the world and things like that. But most of us naturally wouldn't have access to a lot of things right now too. So it's super good timing to go through this process right now in like a January, not because it's, New Year's resolution time, but because your body's kind of like, this is right in line with what I'd expect if we're talking to our ancestral bodies that came at us hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Right. Did anything shift for you from a spiritual perspective?
It's a good question. I wouldn't say from like what I okay, because like I think about spirituality in a couple settings. It's like once you're kind of more traditional religious sense, and then you've got like the more like, okay, am I in tune with my body and my natural existence? Definitely the latter for sure. I would say is much more I think the grateful feeling of food and understanding that you don't need to have it all right away and that you can take what you need. Yeah, I think you look at food and water a little bit differently. And so I think that connection in terms of just mentally how you think about how we nourish ourselves, that definitely changes a little bit. Don't get me
Mm.
wrong. There's still days where you eat too much or you have a beer or 2 more than you should and things like that. But I think you also learn how to bring yourself back into rhythm a little bit quicker too.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Gratitude, like you said, the sound of rushing water, appreciation for, I mean, that first sip of water after a 5 day is like, you've never had liquid like that before. You've never been so satisfied with just a little
I think
bitty
what's
sip of
also weird
water.
though is like I didn't have this crazy urge to drink too much though. Like I wanted to drink more. I wanted to drink a little bit faster than what we've kind of been or what's been on the agenda. At the same time, didn't once I got to where I feel like I had enough, I was content. Like I was like, okay, I've had enough. But it is the first taste is incredible. It's a pretty good feeling, and to have those anxious feelings of like needing to find and needing to search and like that's the other piece too is your dreams just get so crazy going through the process too. It's like constant, and we all have them from time to time. But it was like every dream was a search dream. It was that like for me, it was that like you misplace something or you forget to bring your cleats or you forget to do this and that. Every dream was that way because my body was constantly in like go find it mode.
Fascinating. That's interesting. Yeah.
And you get some sweat dreams too, where you're like wake up and you're like you're to your point earlier, you've got a mild fever. Physically, I think one of the hardest things was, I'd say the only thing where I felt like, oh shoot, I can't operate like I can. Of course, mental clarity is a little bit off at times, but the ability to get up fast, that was kind of the one thing where it was like, man, I had a couple times where I got up too fast to go do something. And then I went down to a knee and I was kind of like, okay, hold on. I gotta let my
Yeah.
body get recalibrated because your equilibrium's off.
We had a gal purchase the DIY dry fast program a couple of months ago, and Theo and I were just like checking in with her occasionally. And she's a nurse. She says she doesn't eat very well. She kicked off her fast with McDonald's like the night before, which,
Wait, that was
come
her last
on.
meal going into it? Man.
Yes. And she, maybe she's listening, but probably not. A little on the heavy side. I had a Zoom call with her. She's got rosacea and inflammation. So she obviously has some gut disruption and stuff going on. And she was talking about how she's addicted to sugar and she's like constantly eating candy and stuff throughout the day just to get the fuel to be able to make it through like a 12-hour nursing shift at a hospital. And she mentioned that a lot. She said, you know, I'm getting up from bed to go use the bathroom and the world is spinning. And she's like, I'm getting a little nervous. I said, well, get up
Yeah.
slower,
Yeah.
get up way slower, take your time, get your bearings right. And what that also told me was like she wasn't getting up frequently enough to be able to move that lymphatic fluid, which is critical. There's nothing like moving that around a little bit, shaking it around, bouncing lymphatic, letting the lymphatic system move the toxins throughout your body so that you could get rid of them more effectively. And so I said, well, number one, move more. Number two, go slow. And she's like, oh, okay, all right, I'll move a little more and I'll move a lot slower. And when she did that, she felt way better. Like she was getting up every couple hours. She was mostly, doing this kind of from her bedroom, but she was doing it isolated. Her boyfriend, I guess, would come in, pop in, say hi, and then leave again and kind of check on her. But once she started to move around more, even just like get out of bed, kind of bounce around next to the bed, and then get back down, it was much easier. For like days 3, 4, and 5 were much more seamless for her because she was moving that around her body and she was just kind of getting, stuck.
Yeah, the rule for me became like lay to sit, sit to stand. Like it was like you went through that like word because you're laying down a lot of the time, you know, like either watching TV or reading or something. And after a while, you can't really read. Like for me, I got to where I was like my ask of going from word to word got got laborious. And so for me, it was like, yeah. But when you come out of that, like after I realized, okay, I can't immediately go and stand up. It was a sit up, give it about 5 to 10 seconds, and then get up and go do what you really had to do, which in most cases that's, you know, urination. That was really cool. It's like day 3 to 5 is when you start actually urinating again because it slows down and then you start urinating again. And well, you know, all of us that went through it know what that is, but it's cool because that's another when you're talking about those moments you have where you see it doing its thing and that it's working and that you're if you know that going in where you're like, yeah, you're going to start urinating again because your body's starting to break stuff down and it's starting to go find water. That's really cool. Is when you're like, because there's no other way that you could be urinating unless that's happening.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's no when you realize, okay, if there's no inputs, my body is still making water. I'm still making that perfect water, that you know, almost like plasma from my system. As that is happening, I'm also excreting what I don't need anymore, what my body doesn't want to hold on to anymore. Have you seen the urine gallery picture yet with everybody's pee and
I
enema
I don't
results?
think so. No.
So if you go to drivefastwithfriends.com/offer and scroll down, we've got like the pea gallery that Theo posted on the site that has like bright green or tea yellow with crystals in it and all sorts of cloudiness and stuff. To me that's fascinating. What I hope or what I wish maybe in the future we can do is go get that analyzed at a lab and understand like, okay,
What's
what
in
are
there?
those
Yeah.
little star-shaped red crystals that are at the bottom of that pickle jar from, you know, your for urination. This is maybe like a little bit of a call to action as we kind of take this thing home. And thank you again for spending time with me, dude. This is great. What would you tell somebody who is like on the fence? They're they're maybe doubting whether or not they can do it. They're not excited about the fact that it's going to be disruptive to their schedule. They may have to take work off for a couple of days. Like, what would you tell that person who's on the fence?
Well, I think starting off just from I guess I think everybody is concerned with how much they're going to inconvenience their normal day to day and in their normal world and the people around them. People are a lot more forgiving for this stuff than you realize. So I think, you know, whether you've got a significant other, family, coworkers, I get it. Every situation's different, but you know, everyone in my life was more than, you know, allowing a ton of grace with the process. So I'd say there's never a good time to do anything that's call it difficult or necessary. So do it. The other piece is I'm speaking from this on the other side of it. So I've got a different, you know, rosy color of how it all went down. But it's there's not 1 ounce of it I regretted doing. Like there's nothing in the process and in the result where I said, man, the only thing I didn't like is that I had to do this. There was not a piece of it I dislike. So looking back on it, and there's not a lot of things I think that you can do, even like going on vacation places, like some part of that sucks. There's not a piece that I look back on it and go like, that was not worth it. So I think, you know, just the elimination of fear and realizing that like a lot of us have done this, like not one of us has had an issue, you know, like not one of us, I shouldn't say had an issue. Not one of us has had some, you know, like shoot, look what happened to me because I did this. And I think even people like I think we had, you know, one person that had to for various reasons jump out of it, you know, as we were going through the fast. They still made it what I think through about 3 days
Yeah.
and like they were like I can't wait to do it again. So even when you have a health scenario where you're like, oh, I've got to tend to this thing, like it's just something I've had for a long time, you're still looking back on it with a really good experience. Yeah, I'd say just the fear is the only thing to be scared of, really, and that's the only thing that's scary is the fear. The process itself, there's not one point was I scared of what I was going through after getting past like hunger and into ketosis.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time. This has been you're like just the perfect guy to talk to, and you're so thoughtful in your responses. This has been super helpful, and we'll see you in a couple weeks on January 8th for Drive Fast with Friends. This will be number 3.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, man.